Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PC Gamer Show for May 8th, 20. We're still brining, 2019. Still soaking in some of those games that came out earlier this year. Though we've had a few new ones come out and some crazy news over the past couple weeks, which we'll be touching on in this show. Joining me today, Wes Fenlon, features editor. How are you?
Hello, hello, James. I have some exciting news.
Oh, boy.
I'm now a pirate.
You're a pirate. You're officially converted.
I'm an official pirate now,
Oh,
meaning I have pirated once.
well, that's good
That
because
makes me a pirate.
we're going to be talking all about Sea of Thieves today, and leading that discussion will be Chris Livingston, our staff writer. I would say he's our captain.
Oh, am
He's,
I the captain? I
I,
had no idea.
I think you're the captain.
I wind up
Hmm.
driving this pirate ship more often, I think, because everyone else is running around doing firing cannons and things.
Tyler might
Hello.
Tyler might be upset to hear this. We might have to have a pirate and first mate duel to the death here. Only one captain can survive to lead our crew.
I
That's
think
true.
Tyler typically provides the music, the musical
Mm-hmm.
accompaniment to the pirate adventures.
He's the bard. Tyler's the
So he's
bard.
more of the guy who has like just the monkey for no reason on his
Mm-hmm.
shoulder, and you're
He
like,
would
why does this guy have a monkey?
definitely be that guy. Yeah.
Right on. Yeah, we're gonna be talking about the Sea of Thieves Anniversary update, which is, man, if you asked me like 6 months ago if an update this size was coming to Sea of Thieves, like what it came out April 30th, I would not believe you. Um, it's
Yeah,
it's
it was a big one, and there
it's a
was
big one.
a lot of different parts to it.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating, and I'm very happy that game is still alive. But yeah, we'll be talking about that. We're gonna be talking about duh the Borderlands 3 reveal. I was at the reveal and got to play about 3 hours of that damn thing and talk to some folks working on it. And yeah, we have a lot of coverage on the site. We're kind of going to break down what I played, what we learned, and concerns we have until release in November 13th or 15th,
Is
something
it
like that.
November or
I
September?
thought it was
September.
September.
Jesus, it's September.
September.
You're right. That's
One of
sooner
those
than I
M
thought.
months.
Oh my god, that's so soon. Yikes. That's going to be a big game. People are going to play that. I have an inkling feeling. Wes, you're going to lead us in a discussion about
Hello.
a big
Yes.
subject, sort of that's been bubbling up over the last couple years, and that's sort of the need to constantly update games and sort of the repercussions that has had on developers and players and streamers and everyone sort of that makes up this industry.
Yeah,
So
it's kind of a big melting pot
yeah,
of issues, and doesn't just pertain to these, giant live service
yeah.
games like Fortnite, though obviously those are kind of the most obvious examples of this trend, this problem and
Hmm.
interesting place we are in video games today. So yeah, we'll dig into that.
It's a wild time. It's a wild time. But before we get into any of the main topics, let's talk about our highlights of the week. And our highlights of the week are sort of anything that we played or saw or read or that is tangential to computer gaming that we think is worth sharing. And why don't we start with let's start with Chris. Let's go with Chris. You win.
Yeah, this week a game called Descenders left early access and released, and I thought I would finally take a look at it. It's a downhill mountain biking kind of racing game with tricks and flips and ramps and things too. It's also um, uses procedural generation to form the courses and the world that the courses take place in. And as they left early access, they added multiplayer, which you can race with up to 8 other people, friends or strangers. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's really kind of like at the same time kind of exciting and bracing because you can really get some crazy speeds and flips and things going. But it's also kind of like it feels very chill at the same time. I'm not sure if it's like the music or something, but it just feels like, yeah, cool. We're just racing down hills, and it's all very, I don't know. It's kind of like a chill out kind of game at the same
I mean,
time.
I feel like those games where the action you're taking is very simple, even
Hmm.
if it can be difficult, can feel pretty zen. Like you kind of just zone in on this one thing you're doing, and you're just like, all I'm doing is dodging trees left and right, and also like, you know, hitting a trick button when I go over a jump or whatever, and you can kind of just forget about everything and just like narrow your focus to that one thing, and that can be a form of relaxing, I think.
Yeah. But it's a lot of fun. So you kind of have, like, if you're playing the career mode, you kind of get this big map view, and you're basically trying to travel through the map via these courses to reach this. They call it a boss jump, like a very big jump at
A
the end of the
boss
last
jump.
course. Yeah, it's called a boss jump.
That's a great
Which is the
concept.
first time I've actually heard of like a jump in a game referred to as a boss, but it does feel kind of appropriate. So you go through these courses, and as you kind of travel across the map, like you get to the second course, and you can choose between a few different courses. Like, oh, this next one could be very steep downhill or have a lot of tricks. There's also these random kind of challenges that come up. So maybe you start the race and it says like if you can finish in under 45 seconds, or if you can get through the finish without ever stopping uh, acceleration, or if you can get 6 seconds of air, like cumulative off jump. So that kind of gives you like a little mini goal to try to do
Hmm.
while you're on the course. Um, and it can also add sort of a feature like, oh, you're forced into first person perspective on this map, or there's no trail. You're just on a hill. You have no idea like what you're going to be facing as you go down because the trail is just missing. So it's kind of like fun, random um, little challenges, and also along with the procedural generation means you're never quite sure what you're going to be seeing on
Right.
this trail. It's not like fantastical. You're not going to see like a 800-foot jump or anything, but the trails will always be a little different. You really have to pay attention the whole time. Um, but it's fun, and the multiplayer thing is kind of like as you're moving across the map, there are other players also moving across the map. So sometimes you'll be on the same course as like 3 or 4 other people. Sometimes you won't. So it's like kind of nice. Like every now and then you'll see someone else racing down the same course you're on, and it's just fun to kind of see how they're doing. And I would suggest not following someone because they don't know any more than you do about the trailhead. I feel like in racing games, like a lot of times, you kind of want to follow the person in front of you because you're trying to beat them, and what better way to beat them than like stay right on them? Don't do that in this game. Try to ignore them because they don't know anything about what's coming up either. So every time I followed someone, I just wound up wiping out.
So can you do like a kind of a more traditional multiplayer where it's like this is a race with me and seven other people, or is it always sort of that just amorphous? Like sometimes there'll be other people on your track and sometimes there won't.
Yeah, you can. There's like a kind of a lobby system. You can like start a game and people can queue up and join, and you'll all start out at the same point. You can obviously race with friends if you invite your friends there. There's also you don't really custom build your track, but you can give it certain things like choose the level of steepness or
Hmm.
Mm.
how many curves there are. Not how many, but more curves as opposed to less curves or more tricks, and generate them. You can also generate them from a seed, apparently.
Huh.
So it seems like a lot of, you're not going to be sitting there constructing a track, but you can kind of add filters and things to how this track is going to be constructed. So it's
Nice.
pretty neat. Yeah, it was fun.
It reminds me of sort of the bike version of like an SSX game or
Yeah.
something, like the
Yeah.
old snowboarding, downhill
Yeah,
snowboarding games.
yeah. So it's fun. I would say check it out if you're into downhill racing. It seems to run really smoothly as far as I can. There's occasionally a little like moment of lag. I'm not sure if it's the network or what, but occasionally there'll be just a little stutter. But it seems otherwise to work really well,
Cool.
and it's fun.
That's Descenders for anyone just tuning in. A downhill biking game just came out of early access today. Right on. Thanks, Chris. Wes, what's your highlight of the week?
Yeah, so my highlight is, as I alluded to a moment ago, I am now a pirate. So I actually played the day before the anniversary update for Sea of Thieves came out, which was last Wednesday. I think
Hmm.
that the update came out. But I jumped into the game with Chris and Tyler and Steven Messner, and the four of us just went kind of gallivanting around on the ocean, and we went up to somebody's ship and stole it and sent it just careening in circles out in the ocean. But then it turned out they were really nice, and Steven felt super bad about it. So
He would.
we went and retrieved their ship for them and brought it back and gave them some bananas, and I don't know what else we gave them. We made peace. But then we took on a skeleton fort. That's what they're called, right? Just skeleton
I think
forts.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a giant skeleton island that continuously spawns waves of skeleton enemies that we fought for probably a good 45 minutes.
Damn.
It takes a while.
It takes a while. They're not easy to fight, and they take a while to respawn, and it's just kind of these wave of attack kind of things.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that the design of that encounter was super interesting. Just like the way they respawn is kind of like, okay, we killed like 8 skeletons, and then you're just looking around, and then like a couple minutes later, some more of them just appear, and you kill them. Like, it wasn't the coolest situation by any means, but just playing it together was really fun because like I spent a lot of the time hanging out on one of their cannon towers that we commandeered.
Mm.
And then like I would get bored of that and I would go in and start like shooting at him with pistols, and Chris would jump on the cannon and we would die and respawn. And eventually we took down the fort and got so much treasure. Just like,
Nice.
I don't know, 20 items of treasure or something. And we're like loading it all up in the ship, and we saw another player ship kind of in on the horizon, and then we were freaking out about like they were going to come steal our loot. And so we're like trying to make it back to the main island before to sell all our loot before somebody came and wrecked us and took all of our winnings. So it was a very exciting like half an hour of finishing that encounter and then trying to make off with all of our pirate booty, which we
We had a
succeeded.
we had a nice assembly line thing going with getting the loot on the ship, because now that the harpoons are added to the front of the ships, you can use the harpoon. I think we had Tyler on the ship shooting the harpoon at the treasure that we were dumping on this rock that he could see from the ship. So we would run into the cave, drop something, he would harpoon it back onto the ship, and a nice little kind of supply chain going there. Much
Yeah,
easier
so
than
that harpoon gun is a new feature, right? That they just
Yeah.
added recently.
that's
Yeah.
one of the new
That was
one of the new toys.
extremely convenient. Yeah,
Right on. You've
that
got
was a lot of fun.
yeah.
I
I've
want to
got
pirate
some,
more.
yeah. I've yet to even. I think I hopped in to try one of the new adventures and just didn't have time. I'll get on the boat with you guys one of these nights. I promise.
James, I have to ask about your highlight of the week, and I see in your notes here you've written the words EW2 Milk Wife Monster.
Yeah,
Explain.
I'm glad you know. It's my highlight of the week. I have a couple, but one in particular has to do with The Evil Within 2. And, you know, after playing Resident Evil 2 and sort of seeing this resurgence of interest in these horror games that are sort of built on the principles established in those 90s survival horror classics, I was reminded that, man, The Evil Within 2 was actually rad and was doing a lot of the stuff people like Resident Evil 2 for, the remake, like a year or two prior. And so I went back and played a bunch of it, including I revisited the final chapters of the game. And for anyone who's curious and wants to play it in the future, like, this is a mild spoiler. I mean, it has to do with like a boss you fight. But I think what The Evil Within 2 excels at more so than Resident Evil 2 and any other survival horror game in recent memory is that it is the campiest, schlockiest, like, most disgusting, melodramatic horror game I think, I don't know, I've played in the last 5 years or something like that. And it is like, I think that will turn a lot of people off, and probably did turn a lot of people off when it came out.
I feel like I remember some people feeling like it was the first game was a lot darker,
Yes.
more serious tone, right? And this one kind of got wacko.
It is so stupid. It is so over the top and so stupid. and I love it. Like I love that kind of shit. And there's it like culminated for me in this boss fight near the end that a lot of the Evil Within 2 takes place inside of like basically the scary Matrix. Uh, and you're literally like moving between levels
So
by
cube, like
yeah, sorta, but
hypercube.
you're literally like moving between levels by like using computers and getting like sort of sucked into different computers and traversing the network that way. But near the end of the game, and I'll keep it vague. Like the Matrix sorts, kind of starts to break up and glitch out a bit, which it results in a lot of that in the early like reveal marketing materials for the Evil Within 2. It was like all these milky figures just sort of emerging from seemingly nowhere, and that's really where that's sort of the substance that makes up this world, is this milky white digigoo, I guess. And so you're traversing this like milky white desert through milky white lakes, set against this milky white backdrop. When who shows up but your wife, your wife, and she turns into a massive milky white monster who is just like it is the boss fight trope of like you fighting a towering humanoid from the torso up, and they could easily just like crush you, but they slam their fists down slowly and deliberately so you can dodge, and they have big glowing weak points, and all the while they're like screaming, Ethan, why didn't you blah blah blah? Ethan, I'll protect my daughter. And I just couldn't stop laughing. I just could not stop laughing the whole time. I plan on like putting a little clip together just to highlight this boss in particular and this scene in particular. It's just so, it doesn't make any fucking sense, and it's all like a big over the top representation of this main character. I don't even know if his name is Ethan. He's so generic. I just think that's what came to mind. His internal torment and anxieties, and his relationship with his wife is one of those anxieties. His crumbling anxieties, his crumbling relationship, and tension over raising their daughter the right way. And anyway, it's hard to do justice unless you can see it. So I will show. I don't know how we'll show it. Just go look it up if you're curious. I also just want to take this time to like endorse playing that game because they added a ton of shit to it in the year plus since I played it.
Really?
Like, yeah, a first person mode, which works pretty darn well. They added a bunch of like menu, not even cheat codes, because they're just like menu options. You can turn on like God mode, infinite stamina. You can turn on like super strength, which kills every enemy in one hit. So even if you want to like just see the game and you're typically too tense and scared to like do that kind of thing, it has some pretty legitimately like spooky moments. Now is a good time. It's probably cheap, so during sales too. Like, go check it out. It's just campy, dumb fun, and also some really cool design. Those sort of semi-open worlds where you're stealthing through, and there's a lot of stuff you can miss, a lot of secrets to dig in, and also a milky white boss mom near the end.
Shinji Mikami still got it. Huh?
Oh, got 100%. That game, man, it's to me, I can't really sense like how people perceive it now or if they do at all, because I feel like it kind of went under the radar when it came out, but
For sure.
it is to me like it's gonna be a cult classic. It's gonna be like looked back on fondly. The other highlight, and I kind of want to wait for my Mordhau stories until we get. Is that how you say it? Mordhau?
I assume so.
Mordhau?
I think so.
Until we can get like Steven or someone on here, so we can talk more in depth about it. But I played some of that. Also, the Fortnite event, the latest Fortnite event happened, and it was, just to summarize, it was so stupid. In case you guys don't know the state of Fortnite, it's already in a place where I think pros are upset with some of the balance changes and items present within it, because the Fortnite World Cup is going on, and every weekend until like July there are qualifiers happening, and so people are frustrated with the meta because is seemingly so random and chaotic based on a few items that it's, getting into the top 10 is like a crapshoot. But with this latest in-game event, players were sent to this vault at the center of the map opened, and players were sent to this like ethereal another matrix, milky white matrix, less milk but definitely white, where 6 obelisks stood, and previously vaulted items were embedded in each of these obelisks, and players could slap or pick at each of these obelisks to sort of cast their vote. And it was tracking every player in the event worldwide live to see which obelisk was getting hit the most.
That's pretty rad from
It's
a technology
Yes,
perspective.
it's like I'm really happy to see these in-game events become more interactive and uh, to lead to like big changes, like literal game-changing changes, because the item that won was then put back into the live pool of items you could get in regular play, and the item that won was not the bounce pad, it wasn't the grappler, it wasn't even the airplane. It was what is widely considered the worst thing to ever happen to Fortnite among like the purists and hardcore pro players. It's the drum gun, which I think it was introduced in season 4, and so it's a Tommy gun, so high rate of fire. It's really inaccurate, but it's accurate enough with its high rate of fire and deep magazine to like and the damage it does if it hits body shot or headshot. It can melt people and it can melt walls. So it's been largely unchanged since then, and it is now melting walls and melting people. It is a more viable weapon if you're not great with the shotgun. It's the most viable weapon up close. It's the most viable weapon at mid range. It basically just, if you're like an average player, it's going to make defensive building impossible, because it's going to melt your walls quicker than you can react. And yeah, they are so common as well that players are just like dropping 3 or 4 of them in their inventory and just rolling that way. It's
So
maybe
do you think this
less.
is going to be around the whole season?
I don't think so. I wrote this article thinking, saying I think it's sort of part of like a prank, or at least the theme, leading up to season 9, because the event then, like once players were ejected from the vault, the volcano on the island blew up and destroyed Tilted Towers, which is like the point of interest on the island. It's like one of the oldest, and it's one of the busiest and most beloved. It's like sort of the deathmatch arena where thirsty players go to get into the action quickly. High risk, but high reward, because you're going to get a lot of loot if you come out on top there. That's gone now. So a big chunk of the player base is disoriented. They're like, okay, now what? Not only that, they're just getting sprayed left and right by these Tommy guns that just basically disrupt the regular flow of play even further. And to me, I see that as, okay, this is just like Epic having a little, playing it a little loose and wild the week before season 9 drops, as sort of part of this apocalyptic ruination theme they have going on. And to me, I think they're gonna vault the drum gun again, like when season 9 hits, because it sounds reckless to me, especially based on how much they're crunching already, based on that Polygon report, to introduce a player chosen weapon into the item pool that could disrupt like the design they've been planning for with, and balance they've been planning for with the season 9 like item pool, because there's inevitably a new vehicle or item or two, map changes, and like you just can't anticipate what the players are going to choose, and then it just, I don't know, it's throwing a wrench in the works, you know what I'm saying? So to me, like I think it's part of a joke. I think it's like a hee hee before season 9 comes, and it's also not going to be included. It was not included in the World Cup qualifiers that weekend, so in professional play. So I'm thinking, it's just a little fun before big changes occur. But anyway,
That
Fortnite.
would be a kind of a cool idea of like for a week before the new season, just add, something that probably doesn't work great but is clearly enjoyed by
Yeah,
people, and just have kind of like a sloppy ass week of play. Although I would say I want to add everything. Add the airplane back. Add the bounce pad. Just have like a complete like free for all crazy ass week. It seemed to be
I
more of a
agree, and I think as they add more items to the pool, as they have been doing for over a year, I think that's like playing with what's live and what's not as part of events is like a fun idea to me.
The last week of every Fortnite season should just be like when you log into a mod server for some game where it's just like, all of a sudden you're in Halo and like the warthogs just have like missile launchers on them, and like
yeah.
someone's carrying around a gun that just shoots like 5 rockets instead of one, and they can super bounce onto the top of the map, and someone's just built a weird statue of like a furry character in the middle of the map. Like, who knows? Just let it go crazy every 1 week out of the
Hell yeah,
season.
hell yeah, I agree.
Star Fox is here. No one knows why.
But I'll shut up about Fortnite because I don't know. Is this a teen website that we run? Let's move on to our first topic, and let's. I have the pressure to update listed first here, but I think the two games we're going to be talking about might feed into that topic. So let's skip to Borderlands 3 if you guys are down with that. Sound good?
Borderlands.
Sure.
Borderlands the
So
third.
did you enjoy your time at the Borderlands event last week?
I did. Yeah. It was pretty smoothly run, and you could tell everyone had rehearsed this time around. No magic tricks involved. Um, it went pretty smoothly. Yeah, it was cool. Went down to LA and went to a big scary warehouse as you do at these kind of industry events, and played 3 hours of Borderlands 3. It was the same demo twice, but I played it with two different Vault Hunters, Zane and Amara. I want to say her name is. Am I messing that
Were
up?
those the only two they were letting people play
Yes.
as, or okay,
That was it for that show. And I'm
keeping the
guessing,
other ones under wraps for the
yeah,
moment?
I'm guessing at like E3 or wherever else they said they were going to show, like PAX. We'll get those in a couple months. But yeah, we got the Siren character and sort of the I don't know how you classify Zane, like a specialist soldier type. Um,
At first, I thought he was supposed to be the assassin, but I don't think that really fits his skill set, his skill trees.
no, he's more of a he's the multitasker. He's got a couple options for his class skill, and he can use two at once. That's his specialty. You can swap out the option to throw grenades for the option to use another class skill, and I rolled with his shield, which is I don't really know how it's going to be used quite yet, but he throws down a shield. It's better for co-op definitely, and if you shoot through that shield, you can get certain buffs to whatever you're shooting, or it can change your elemental damage type depending on how you spec it out. We didn't get too far down the skill tree to use any of that stuff. You can also pick up the shield, and if you want to make like a risky flanking maneuver, it'll become basically it'll cover his face, and I don't recall if you can shoot through that or not. I don't think you can. I didn't do it very often. And you can also throw out a drone, which if you can tag specific enemies if you want that drone to just do damage to them or elemental damage or slow them down. There's a whole bunch. His skill tree is also pretty deep in that regard. And he can. I forgot what his last one is. I'm failing.
We wrote an article where we wrote out all of the skill descriptions
Yeah.
for Zane and Amara, which is pretty detailed.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot
Going on.
packed into those skill trees.
He can. Oh yeah, he can throw out a clone of himself, and he can swap locations with that clone at any time. So he's all about positioning and sort of like doing chip damage, like crowd control, uh, giving benefits to your team. Amara has a couple abilities. She throws out. I used one that's basically like a. Um, why am I forgetting the name of the Street Fighter move, the most iconic Street Fighter move, where you throw out a
Hadouken.
Jesus Christ, a Hadoken. She basically has a Hadoken. Another one that's like this crazy ground pound that has AoE effects, and I don't remember the last one. Oh yeah, giant fist that bursts out of the ground and locks people in place. which is cool. You know, another crowd control thing, and it looks neat. Uh, so yeah, two pretty cool characters. It was hard for me playing because we didn't have co-op buddies to
Mhm.
see how that stuff was synergized or not. But you can just take a look at these skill trees and see how deep they are, and you can just imagine the kind of synergies you can create with anywhere between 2 to 4 players. So that's exciting. The Vault Hunters are going to be very fun to spec out again, especially in combination with all the wacky ass guns you pick up.
But let's get to the important
Yeah,
stuff. I
yeah,
think Chris has been waiting really patiently to hear
yeah. What?
about Claptrap in Borderlands
Oh
3.
my God.
What's the Claptrap lowdown?
What's the situation? Well, let me tell you. The very
Well,
first.
I saw the start of the
Mm-hmm.
gameplay footage, and the first thing that happens is Claptrap comes out and screams in your face for like 15 solid minutes, and I was like, "All right,
Yeah,
we're doing it again."
we are doing it again, and he's back. In the demo I played, the hour and a half. I don't think he was present at all, except for like a side quest, which I'll talk about in a bit. But yeah, definitely in your face at first. It wouldn't be. I think he is, like it or not, the image associated with this game the most, this series the most, and we're gonna see a lot more of this shrill, sad, shameful robot, whether we like it or not.
Who interestingly has a new voice
Yeah.
actor due to some. I don't know if you were planning to get into this, James, but
Oh,
I feel
can of
like the
worms.
story of Borderlands 3's big event has been eclipsed by the story of uh, the former Claptrap actor alleging that Randy Pitchford assaulted him in some way
Yeah.
in the lobby of a hotel a couple of years ago. And then that just erupted into a whole,
Mm-hmm.
you know, Twitter conflux of bullshit. I don't know how to describe
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Well, it started with the reveal that Claptrap had a new voice, and people wanted to know, hey, why isn't David Eddings, who had done the voice and also was formerly, I don't know, what was he, the VP of Business and Marketing or something for Gearbox? People wanted to know why he was not voicing it again, and that sort of started this. Well, they couldn't afford me, and then, oh well, we made a nice offer, and some bitterness surfaced, and now we're where we're at right now, which is an allegation of physical assault in a Marriott between Randy Pitchford and David Eddings. So
So yeah, where we're at now is probably the lawyers are
the lawyer saying,
discussing
"Stop
it.
tweeting, stop tweeting."
Yeah.
It's good. You know what? It's good advice for everyone. Just stop tweeting.
100%. I don't think I've ever put out a tweet that I've second guessed, even the most innocent ones. But yeah, this what a fucking nightmare. Like it's all of it. Obviously, those two have a long running beef, and we can't really comment one way or the other on whether it's true or not because that stuff, like you said, all the lawyers are in discussions, no doubt. But it's just a selfish, shitty way to follow up your game launch by just being vocal and mad online. Randy to
Yeah,
Randy.
it all kind of stemmed also from him taking issue with the way some people were describing the microtransactions in the game, uh, and yeah, it kind of became a whole thing
Yeah.
that I think, unfortunately for him, though of his own making, like we said, like eclipsed the discussion of just the
What,
game itself.
what's wild about that microtransaction thing? For people who don't know, during the reveal presentation, kind of capping the end of it, Randy and I saw this presentation 3 times. I sat through it 3 times, twice in person and one the next day
Live
from the
stream.
live stream because there was 2 days of this thing. It was unclear every single time, even though the wording changed. Randy would say, "We're not going to have free to play microtransaction-y stuff," but then, like either before or after, would mention things like we will probably have cosmetics and heads and whatever else he said, bodysuits and such, and other DLC packets. So
Basically trying to say like there aren't going to be loot boxes
yeah,
or really grimy stuff, but just not
not being
coming
clear.
out and being 100%
Every
clear.
single time I heard it as a writer, a journalist trying to do my job, I said, okay, I wrote it down, transcribed each one, and read them several times over. And each time I was like, okay, I need to ask follow-up questions to clarify this. And so I did. I talked to Paul Sage, the creative director, and he cleared it up and said it is very likely, or they will have, the plan is to have microtransactions, cosmetic microtransactions, auxiliary things, but again, like nothing that resembles free to play currencies, premium currencies, any of that shit. And we have an article clearing that up. And so we wrote an article that was basically the same thing, but Randy, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but Randy picked out a Game Informer tweet running basically the same kind of article, but the tweet itself maybe like it could be interpreted as like saying Randy was being disingenuous. I don't think that was the goal. I think it was just like to clarify the statement, and it kicked off this whole back and forth between Randy and
It was quite a week.
yeah, it's been a long time. It's just a fucking shame because a lot of people, talented people, are working on this game clearly, and I was very happy. Like it was nice to see that he brought them up, the team, during the presentation, and like said these are the people making it, and then
And you enjoyed it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it felt like
yeah,
it felt like the same kind of fun as Borderlands 2, but there's kind of more stuff. There's
More
it's
yeah,
bigger.
yeah. That was my general take. Like I think a lot of us going into, we heard Borderlands 3 was coming out, and we all kind of knew it was coming. And between Borderlands 2 and now 3, a lot of games as service, live games like Destiny 2, The Division 2, these looter shooters.
Destiny 1 and Destiny 2.
Yeah, excuse me. Like have come out between then and now, and sort of picked up what Borderlands started in the shooter genre at least, and ran with it and made these like lifestyle games. And I think a big anxiety a lot of people had was, okay, is Borderlands 3 going to try and do the same thing? And thankfully, no. It is very much the same shape or similar shape as Borderlands 2, where it's just a replayable co-op campaign with starting off with 4 Vault Hunters, and a lot of wild loot and skill trees to play with within. So that's pretty much the shape of it when it comes out. The plan is for more DLC packs and expansions, but we don't really know what those are quite yet. It just won't be like season. It won't be structured where you're going to get new updates and new quests and weeklies and dailies and yada yadas in the same way that you see. Destiny 2 is the easy example, I guess, because we've been talking about it and its trials and failures and successes for the better part of a decade now. So yeah, big sigh of relief for me in that regard. But there are changes. There are some major changes. But
James, the thing I'd love to hear you talk
Yeah.
about, one of your notes you have here is the gunplay feeling better, or feeling a little different. And like, it's been a long time since I played Borderlands 2, but I played a lot of it, and I always remember enjoying the combat. Like, I
Yeah.
think that comes from the guns being just, the variety in the guns, and when you get one that has a crazy rate of fire and also, lights things on fire, or, just the combinations of the random generation. But I'm sure that the impact of your bullets and the animation and that stuff wasn't, top tier for a shooter, because one, that game, came out quite a long time
Yeah.
ago, and
Yeah.
two, you don't expect that degree of random generation to have kind of the same like dialed in feel that you're going to have from, the modern Doom, for example, or a Killing Floor 2 kind of game.
Right. And
But you're pretty positive on the gunplay.
yeah, and to be clear, I don't think it is. It's still very numbers heavy. It's still like very much leaning into the stats of your weapons, but it feels so much better than Borderlands 2 did. I went back and played Borderlands 2 this last week just to see if that was true. If the shooting did feel as sort of hollow, and enemy feedback was as sort of stiff, and it largely was. But in Borderlands 3, the weapons definitely feel much more unique. There's better feedback when you're firing. They really kick, and enemy reactions too. So that manifests in a couple ways. Like enemies can get blown back based on certain invisible stats, and knocked through the air like rag dolls. Um, the higher fidelity in the art style allows for like much more expressive characters too. So they're not only reacting to getting hit, but like if you get close to some characters and they don't have a mask on, like they might go wide-eyed the moment before you
Hmm.
pull the trigger, and it's really grim
Oh, so
and
even before you shoot them,
yeah,
it's like an
yeah,
AI
yeah. They
reaction.
sort of
That's cool.
react to what you're doing um, in some cases, and it's really comic and funny and leans into like the favorite kind of the best kind of humor I think Borderlands is good at, which is physical and based on like things we do in games and subverting those expectations or exaggerating them rather than like making meme jokes and references constantly. But yeah, and the gun generation system really adds to that. Like they've doubled down on that as well. Every manufacturer in the game, like Malawan, Hyperion, Vladov, they have their own individual like parts system for the random or for the weapon generation system rather than compared to Borderlands 2 where every gun across every manufacturer shared the same part system. So you got a lot of samey sort of looking stuff. A lot of stuff sort of feel the same, but now if you pick up like a Hyperion weapon, it's gonna feel like a weird futuristic prototype that kind of defies what you think a gun is or looks like.
Mm.
One of them, like my favorite Hyperion weapon I found, is just like like their default pistol type, and it wraps around your arm almost like a Mega Man blaster. And
Huh.
there's also a new alt fire mechanic, so a lot of weapons can have alt fires, alternative firing modes, and that doesn't just mean it. Sometimes means like it changes the firing rate from single to burst fire. It can also mean like in the case of this Hyperion pistol, the alt fire shoots out a tracking grenade that if it bursts near any enemies, uh, will then basically magnetize whatever bullets you fire out of that pistol to it. And
Oh,
wanted
rad.
style will like curve around cover to hit them.
So it becomes like the Titanfall pistol, like
It's
the
yeah,
smoke
yeah,
pistol
exactly,
from
exactly. I forgot
yeah.
about that one. Yeah, it's beautiful like that. So there's like a lot of depth in terms of not just uh, the like I feel like Borderlands 2 the when the numbers gelled in a specific way it was much more stats based when it came to like the characteristics unique characteristics of your weapon or feel of a weapon, and that's true in Borderlands 3, but it's also much more physical and obvious and like moment to moment present in in the gameplay. Like having 3 guns in Borderlands 3 is more like having 6 guns because all the alt firing modes and how unique they are between manufacturers now.
Wait, so are you telling me there's 2 billion guns in this
Oh my
game,
god!
not just 1 billion?
Don't give them more marketing material. You gotta get paid for that. So yeah, it's definitely not like it doesn't feel as good as like Destiny 2 or Call of Duty, but it's up there. It's close, and combined with a much more fluid movement system, so you can like mantle up walls with you can ledge grab and climb, pull yourself up. You can crouch slide now, which is I think every first person shooter should have. It is a new staple of the genre to me. It's much more
I mean,
mobile.
it's such a normal thing that we all do in our daily lives. I feel like you should be able to do it in games, right?
Exactly. Why not? So yeah,
Crouch slide into the desk every day.
the it's just fun to shoot dudes in this game, which and the dudes are because technology happened between 2 and 3. You're seeing way more on screen at once and wilder effects, and they're more mobile and diverse. So it feels like Serious Sam plus RPG mechanics, and a little bit of Call of Duty with that ADS stuff. But
That all sounds real good.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, I like the shooting in it a lot. Uh, let's see here. Other notable differences. Anything else you guys like think I need to hit on here? Let's see.
I guess one thing I'm curious about, and you probably didn't play enough of the game
Yeah.
to have a real verdict on this, is how the planets that you travel to compare
Ah,
to the sort of just different locations in like Borderlands 2. Because like Borderlands 2 had a pretty diverse setting.
yeah,
You went to quite a variety. It was like the the kind of Arctic starting area, and then you went. I remember there was kind of a zoo,
Mhm.
and there was like quite a bit of variety, but obviously still all on the same planet. And now we're gonna be planet hopping.
That we
I'm
are.
curious how that compares.
Hard to say quite yet. We got to go to one planet. It was the Hyperion homeworld of
Promethea?
Promethea. That's right. And it's definitely like dystopic corporate future with massive skyscrapers everywhere you look, and everything's run by Hyperion and owned by Hyperion, and they're basically not just a corporation; they are the rulers of this place. But the conflict happening in the demo, at least, is that the Hyperion is in part of a corporate battle, corporate takeover, which is literally a corporate takeover with, I'm forgetting the name of the other corporation. It might be Malawan, actually. And they are a corporate takeover on Promethea is quite literally corporate warfare, and they are invading this planet and trying to take over through brute force. But yeah, I don't know how the greater diversity will sort of what it looks like in other than what we've seen in that sort of like spicy trailer they showed at the end of the reveal. Promethea is a cool place, and it has unique enemies, its own like sort of storyline. I'm forgetting the name of all these characters. Tales of the Borderlands guy. What's his name? Rhea? I don't know, but it's got some old favorites from Tales of the Borderlands directly involved in the story of this planet. And I'm hoping, I don't know, I'm hoping that my big concern is that Promethea's level design is very like in line with what we've seen in a lot of Borderlands games, and it's open spaces, corridors, a couple places to drive. I'm hoping some of the other more exotic locations are really experimental and strange in terms of how they, I don't know, articulate. But I don't really know. I'm not a level designer, so I don't even know what the fuck that means. I just hope to be surprised.
Just want it to feel different.
Yeah,
Just want
yeah.
something different.
Beyond like a
I have
palette
to say,
change.
I love the idea of the big bad from like the first two games being just they haven't been destroyed by some
Yeah.
like other evil force. They're just keep getting wrecked by capitalism. Like it's just a fucking merger is ruining ruining their lives.
It's a fitting end. It's a fitting end. And I think Borderlands does pretty good, like hyper corporate like parody. It's fun to watch. It's fun to like see a bunch of douchey cartoon characters, cartoon CEOs, and kill their minions. That's always good. And there's a lot of that, so that makes me happy. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, there's more to do in each level too. I stumbled into a lot of side quests, like Claptrap's building a girlfriend, so you can find parts for that. Hooray!
No.
Yeah, great.
No, thanks.
Zero, the ninja from 2 or 1. I'm forgetting. It's 2.
Yeah.
Has some secret combat challenges. Moxie has some like cult radio stations that you can take down, and some other things. So there's more impetus to explore every nook and cranny, I think, which is cool. But yeah, I'm surprised how familiar it feels, and I'm totally content personally with as long as the gun variety is good and the writing isn't too grating. The shooting feels great, so I'm happy to do more wacky shooting with friends, if that's the case. So, Borderlands 3.
Sure, we'll get to see more before September.
Definitely. I'm pretty sure they confirmed E3, so we'll be seeing that there for sure. But let's move on to the pirate game we all know and love.
Pirates.
Yeah. Pirates.
So,
have you been playing more of the new update, Chris?
I've played a little bit here and there. So the anniversary update added a bunch of stuff. It actually added a lot of stuff. I think what's really great about it is that there's kind of something for everyone in what they added. The three main sort of features of this update were an arena mode, um, a new story based and puzzle based campaign, and this fishing activity. And I think like taken together, like no matter how you play the game, you're going to get something out of some part of those. And like for me, like the one I'm interested in least is the arena mode, but I think it may actually be the most important for
Mm.
Sea of Thieves because this is a game where even if you love ship to ship combat and you have a crew that you get in with, like you can still wind up sailing around for a while before you get in a fight, and it might not happen. You know, people if anyone has
Just run
treasure on their
away.
ship, they're just going to run and try to sell it. There's combat out there. Most times I play, there's the opportunity for it, but if you don't have a couple hours to kind of spend around, searching the world for enemies, for human enemies at least, it can be kind of challenging sometimes. And I think arena mode really answers that because it's like a 25-minute round. You get on your ship, everyone else's ship is right there with you, and it's basically 25 minutes of combat or treasure hunting or some combination of both. And I think that's kind of great that if it's like, hey, I want to jump into Sea of Thieves and shoot cannonballs at somebody, now you can do that really quickly, and within a half hour guaranteed you're going to be you're going to have a bunch of ship to ship fights. And I think it's not really why I play Sea of Thieves, but I think it's great for people who do, because if you really love the combat, you don't have to wait for it anymore. You can jump
Mm.
right in.
I think there's
Um,
a lot more people who just broadly will want to play games that way rather than the way that you and Tyler especially play, which is just like making your own fun out of a very open-ended sandbox, just being like, we want to see if we can grapple hook our boat onto this island, and
right.
that's what you do that night, is just try to test the limits of a system, or go just catch a fish and then cook it, and like that was a win for that evening. Like that was a fun time. Most people are gonna actually want to fight some stuff and
Yeah.
have a little more structure.
Yeah, we do kind of treat it like more of a hangout game. Like, hey, let's jump in and we'll think up something to do while we're there. Maybe we'll chase some treasure. Maybe we'll just goof around. But it is, I think it is great that there's this, half hour experience inside it where you can have a lot of action very quickly. I think that's really important for the game. Um, so the second part was this new story driven campaign where which is also kind of great because again, like you can do it in small pieces, which I wasn't quite expecting. This is like a session based game, so you don't retain your inventory when you leave. Every time you start playing, you're kind of starting from scratch. But like the first time Tyler and I played through the first part of the new story, we kind of got maybe halfway through and then we had to leave, and we're like, oh great, because we lose our progress. But we sort of didn't, because the first half was to find this ship's log that was on a shipwreck underwater. And like when we came in for the second part on a different night, like we just went to that spot and found that ship's log again, so we could kind of pick right up where we left off. And then we completed. I think we played another 2 hours to complete the first, I think, of 10 parts of this, or 5 parts of this new story. And that's also great because it's very kind of exploration based and clue based. You basically have a log that you're assembling to track to follow the path of this ship to find this item. And you read the ship's log and they say we started here, we sailed northeast past an island that looked like this, and then we turned north. And so you're kind of following their progress on your map, and following the clues they lead. And it led to another series of puzzles. And it's of a kind of the sort where you're not quite sure what they want from you. Like we found this
Mm-hmm.
object and didn't know what to do with it, and we kind of had to wander around and reread the journal and um, figure out kind of what it was looking for. So in some parts it was a little vague, but the puzzles themselves are actually pretty great. And I watched some video of some other parts of the quest, and there's parts where you have to hold up it's like a piece of wood with an etching on it, but part of it's missing. So you're on an island trying to find the missing thing
Oh,
among
I'm
the
into that.
scenery,
Yeah.
which is great. I think I love when you can hold something in your hands in a game and besides shooting something, like actually kind of try to fit it into the world or use it in the
The
world.
more Goonies those quests are, the better, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
there's a very like there were trapdoors in a room filling with water, and
What?
we're
It's
trying to
it's,
That's
it's the
great.
fucking Goonies.
That's the fucking
yeah,
Goonies.
it is
They
very
made a
Goonies.
10-hour Goonies story mode. All right, I'm super
Um,
I'm
in.
in.
so yeah, we should all do the rest of those because we only just did the first part. So that's great. I think those are fun. It gets you out in the world. It gives you a little direction, even during a hangout session. It's like, hey, let's spend an hour or two and see how far we get in this quest, and we can pick it up next time if we don't finish. Um, so the third thing is this fishing activity, and that works as like, oh, I'm we're sailing somewhere, maybe even along, following the story along. Let's cast a line in the water, catch some fish. Obviously, you can now cook them and use them as a healing. Eat them to heal. But there's more than that. There's a new hunter faction that will buy these fish from you. There's 10 different kinds of fish, each with 5 variations. And then there's also trophy versions, which are twice as big. And there's fish that you have to be in certain parts of the world to catch. Some that only appear during storms, some that only appear at shipwrecks, and some that only appear in ponds. So this is like if you want to just go in like I want to grind out and catch all these fish, you have like a really kind of like good direction or series of tasks to complete to get all these fish, and that'll take you all over the map in different situations and different conditions. Or it can just be something you do when you have time, or oh, we're sailing from here to here, there's a shipwreck. Instead of just searching it for treasure, why don't we fish and see if we catch that special fish that only spawns at shipwrecks, which are random. So it kind of, I think it, like, the fishing itself isn't particularly like complicated, but I think the way that they uh, gave you so many different types of fish to find in different situations makes it like that can become its own quest if that's what you're interested in, or it can just be something to do when you have time. So that's been fun. Also, I think those things all combine to be this really kind of great update. Where if you're casual and only have half an hour, or you like combat, or you like puzzles, or you like being a completionist, I think like everyone gets something really kind of satisfying out of this update. So it's a pretty neat addition.
That's exciting. I think for me, my question is, uh, do these editions, because I when I'm playing Sea of Thieves, I just like to get in there and, like you guys say, just hang out and sort of just wander and let the systems and our interests take us where they will. Do you feel like these editions, like the ability, like the new ship destruction, the fishing, the adventure, does it add to that moment to moment decision making, sort of the sandbox experience of the game overall, or is that relatively similar?
I think it maybe gives you a bit more to, like, if you're not quite sure what to do, like
Mm.
it gives you a bit like I don't know, like if you're like I was on an island looking for treasure and there was a pond, so I'm like, oh, can you? This was very early on, but I was like, can you fish in ponds? I didn't even know at that point, and it's like just catching a fish means like, well, now I should find a seaport to sell it at because you can only sell it at certain places in the world. So
Mm-hmm.
just catching a fish, you can also catch like a boot. I pulled, I pulled a skull out of the water. I pulled an old
Nice.
hat, and it's like now that I've got this thing, I have to go do something with it. So,
Wait,
Mm.
can you
oh
wear
here,
the hat?
no, you couldn't
Bummer.
wear the hat.
It's just trash.
Yeah, it's just like junk.
Ah,
But you can
so
sell it,
close.
and if you sell enough junk, they'll give you a little commendation or something like that. Um, I think in terms of like giving you a bit more direction if you're looking for it. I think it definitely adds in that respect.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to get back in there. And I'm again just like I feel like what did Tyler review this back? Was it a year ago? He was gunning for it. He was evangelizing this game, and I just want to say, Tyler, for the record, you were right. You were right. It was a great
Yeah,
game.
it's definitely kind of growing, I think, in the right ways. Like,
Yeah.
if you look at some of the previous updates, like some of them I didn't even try. It was like the general thought of Sea of Thieves was there's just not enough to do,
Mm-hmm.
and I think at first they tried to solve it by saying, well, here's 15 more islands and like you know a couple things to do on them. But I think it wasn't just like to add more of it, but to give people different play styles, like more to enjoy in their particular play styles. And I think the anniversary update definitely did that pretty well.
Right on. Cool.
Also, you can have your mast knocked down.
Yeah, yeah. I was just showing footage of that, and you pull it back up.
Pull it back up with the ropes.
The
Yeah, I was
ropes.
getting bombarded via a volcano, and I did not ever successfully get my mast back up.
It's amazing. It looks so
But
cool.
and yeah, harpoon guns are fun. You can pull stuff out of the water. You can pull players over to your ship. You can, um, that's fun too. So
Right on.
yeah, we should all get in there and sail again.
And I'm sure we'll have just more Sea of Thieves content on the website at a regular pace, just as we experiment and play with these updates. So
I just want regular like Chris fishing
yeah,
updates.
pretty
Like
much.
we just need news stories from Chris. It's just like, hey, I caught this fish.
I
Look at
got
this
this
fish.
fish.
Caught this
I've been
green
trying to
fish
catch
today.
this one particular. Honestly, most of the time has been spent in one place trying to catch one particular fish. So each, like I said, 10 fish, 5 variants each. One of those variants is extremely rare. So if you're a completionist, you're going to be probably spending a lot of time in one spot trying to catch one particular fish, as I have been. Um, yes, I will find it someday.
Well, best of luck.
Someday.
Someday.
I don't know why. I don't know why I need to find it so bad. I caught
I
I
get
caught
it.
the other 4. I just like want that last one.
In Far Cry 5, like it's not really I don't know if they advertise it very much in the game, but you can collect all the trophy fish and try for all the trophy fish, and there's sort of like a certain tier of rod you need to unlock, and I gun for all of those, and I don't know why. That's fishing for you, right? It's just like
Yeah.
you got to do it because you can. It's possible. All right, let's move on to our final topic of the day before questions, and I think it's a fitting one to wrap the show with because both the games we talked about today are sort of tangential to games as a service or live games, or the growing trend for games to constantly push out updates and become a service as opposed to a something like the games of yore that were released and sort of done with for the most part. And Wes,
Or just had kind of standalone
yeah,
expansions or something every year or
yeah,
whatever.
much slower pace overall. And Wes, you and you Crowd the Future with Jody McGregor, a very talented
Yeah.
man,
Yeah, he,
on
he
this
wrote it,
topic.
and this kind of came from an idea that had been, I guess, floating around our team for a bit, and that Evan had, especially kind of seeing some of the response to Apex Legends when they kind of went out and explained why they're taking their time with updates to that game, as well as some of the recent stories around crunch from NetherRealm, which we reported on ourselves, from Epic Games on Fortnite that Polygon did a really in-depth piece on. Stuff that Kotaku has been on this beat for a long time, talking about crunch at various studios, and kind of us coming to the realization or wanting to put in front of people the fact that like these are not wholly separate issues that happen completely independently of one another, right? Like crunch is not a problem for just bad management, while live service games that have updates every single week to keep people interested in them are their own thing. Like those two
Yeah,
things, not in every situation are they intricately linked, but like for the most part, one causes the other, or feedback feeds back into the other. And then there's a whole lot of other issues that kind of come into play here with how games are sold and made and streamed. And we were just trying to kind of say this is how we see the state of the games business right now and some of the problems it's facing, and here's how all these issues are connected. So we have a big feature on the site that does that, and we can talk about a little bit of it
Yeah,
right here.
yeah,
I think Sea of Thieves is a perfect example of a game that like fits into this situation interestingly, because when it came out, it did not really fit the mold of other live games, right? Like it didn't have that much to do in terms of specific quests and daily stuff and raids and the kind of thing that you would expect from I feel like that Destiny, the Division kind of have like gone down that path. And I don't think Sea of Thieves did super well at first, but has managed to stick around as a live game thanks to how cool the sandbox is, and them kind of making some smart additions to it over time. But they didn't rush those, right? Like they
no.
took it took them a year to put out this really big update, and they had some other ones over time. But Chris, do you remember kind of the pace of them adding stuff to Sea of Thieves over the last year?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't seem like it was. I mean, I can't say obviously what goes on at the studio, but I never felt like it didn't really like feel like they were cranking things out at a breakneck pace, and they seemed pretty. It all seemed pretty deliberate, and something would come along every maybe a couple months. At one point, they even I think disabled something because it just wasn't working as they added something new. I don't feel like this doesn't feel like this kind of sense of urgency as it feels in other games where it's like we've got 15 new things this week. It's sort of like maybe every couple months. Because typically the times when we play it is when something new comes out and we want to take a look, and that doesn't seem to happen more than any few months. So it definitely doesn't feel like you know a content factory just pumping stuff into the game
Yeah,
breakneck
and
pace.
it's and the complicated thing about this subject, right, is like we like updates to games.
Yeah.
Like we like when new stuff gets added to games. Obviously, we want the people making them to work, reasonable hours and not insane hours. But as people who are just playing the games, like we don't always know the difference, right? Like, yeah, in hindsight, you could say, well, maybe it was kind of obvious that the team working on Fortnite have had to work some pretty insane hours to put out as much stuff as they have, but you don't know that when you're just logging into Fortnite and they've
Hmm.
added a new gun or they've released a balance patch to fix something last week. You don't think about the fact that, like, wow, they probably had to pull an all-nighter to do both of those things simultaneously, right? You just think, well, they have a big team working on Fortnite, or cool, there's a new gun,
Most of
But
Epic is working on Fortnite,
yeah,
and they're
yeah,
still
exactly.
crunching.
And I think a few people, not most, I think the response to this article has been really positive. A few people have said that we're like blaming players and like going for the entitled player angle. Like that wasn't the point of the article at all, and I don't think it really makes that, it doesn't come from that angle. And in fact, like we said in here even that, um, yes, players demand big updates, but games have trained them to expect that. And that's kind of the whole point, is the the way the business has moved in this direction of these really frequent updates being the norm. And
Yeah.
so, of course, people expect them because that's how this other game over here did it. And that game was really successful, or I really liked that game. So, yeah, these publishers are going to look at one success and they're going to, push other games to take that model. And I think that brings up issues like the sameness we used to talk about when loot boxes were in every single game, 2 years ago. Is like it makes the design of the games boring, because if it's built around loot boxes or loot card, card packs or whatever, like how that experience is going to feel when you
Hmm.
play it. And that's not as exciting as encountering a new school of design you haven't seen before. And this doesn't just affect the Fortnites of the world, right? Like one of the examples we use in the article was Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which you played a good bit of, right, James?
Yeah. Finished it, and a couple of the expansions, as you mentioned. It's got this really elaborate sort of tale on a single player game that you don't see quite often.
And how would you describe the sort of the progression curve in that game and how it could interact with the like the boosters or whatever you could buy to level up? I'm guessing you didn't do that, but maybe you
Well,
did.
I mean, that was a huge topic of conversation when it came out, because some quests are sort of level gated, and the leveling happens really, really slowly without that. I think you get double the XP if you buy like a $10 boost or something like that. And so you're really incentivized to do side quests, which are, or these bounties, which are tied into, these bounties are these sort of like randomized quests that generate a premium currency if you complete them,
Mm.
that tie into um, this store that constantly sort of updates with new items, aesthetic items, and things like that, which then uh, also tie into these like sort of ongoing systems like the I'm forgetting the name of it, the hitman system, essentially, where there are a ton of mercenaries out there constantly renewing and generating themselves, and Ubisoft is pushing new ones out there. I think Testicles, like a joke one about testicles, was the latest one to grab attention. um, and you get specific new rewards that feed back into your experience, which maybe you're working through still because they've, you know, really broken up their season pass model into a premium and a free sort of tail, where you get some
Mm.
free quests over time, and free updates over time, and there are premium quests and expansions you can pay for that extend that XP grind and extend, that chase, and incentivize further dipping back into those side quest systems that feed into, anyway, you get it.
Yeah, and so the way I think that feeds into this story that we wrote and this kind of coalescing of ideas that we are trying to present is it's not necessarily a bad thing that
No.
Assassin's Creed Odyssey has new shit you can do 6 months later. Like if you love that game, that's cool that you have more stuff you can play through. That's not just inherently bad, but the picture we're trying to paint is when more and more of our games, whether they're multiplayer or single player, are trying to keep your attention for that long,
Mm-hmm.
it's we're getting to like we're boiling over. We're getting to this point where there are too many of these huge games that these companies need to make shitloads of money on for them to be viable, that want to stay in the conversation for 6 months or a
Mm-hmm.
year and not just a few weeks or a month or a couple months. And people were like, you're talking about Assassin's Creed Odyssey months later
Yeah.
in a way that you wouldn't have been a year ago, and or 2 years ago or 3 years ago, an earlier version of the game in the series, unless you just really really liked that game. And that's cool if you only play a few games a year, but there are so many games now coming out
Mm-hmm.
all the time that if all of the big games are trying to use this same strategy, it's just going to be overwhelming. It's too much, and it's not going to work. I think people are going to start getting really tired of it.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know, like, it's been fascinating to talk to you guys and some of my friends about sort of how our habits have changed over the years, last couple of years, because of, or our impulses when it comes to picking what to play. Because I wouldn't have really thought of picking up Assassin's Creed Odyssey again if I had not invested so much time into it already. And the
Mm.
systems there are meant, even with like an XP boost, are still meant to make you feel like you've poured time and energy into a work of some kind rather than an experience or entertainment. And so it feels like you're losing something if you don't check back in with a lot of these games, like Assassin's Creed or Destiny 2. And furthermore, something like Fortnite has capitalized on this weird content cycle relationship with streamers and players because their item shop updates every day. It changes every day. These cosmetics you can buy, um, and streamers like early on in the early days of Fortnite, basically, and YouTubers acted as like billboards for the new stuff coming to the game. They would put out videos like Ninja, in particular, would put out videos like just playing a match with a new skin, big flashy thumbnail with a new skin, um, and and that was like one way to drive, sort of, well, incentivized him making YouTube videos. People like him making YouTube videos and streaming as well to advertise these new things because it gets viewers, and in turn, it drives Epic to make more of those skins to generate more interest in their game and maintain interest. And furthermore, they added I think it's the creator code system, which means if you input a specific code into into the Fortnite item store, tied with certain content creators, they will get a cut of whatever you buy in the store. So it's like this, and it is their livelihood now beyond just like having views for streaming interesting games or playing them well, like Ninja might or whoever. Um, Now you're tied to this specific ecosystem and specific game because it's you're incentivized to make money advertising these the systems that drive new content that cycle in and I don't know how you decouple from that or
Yeah, I mean, if you project that out, like, especially the AAA studios, but even to some extent smaller
yeah
developers, they are thinking, as developers or publishers, like they're thinking about what is successful on Twitch, what
yeah
works on Twitch, because that's a huge driver of people buying games, people being interested in games, being aware of games, right? And if your game is never going to be streamed on Twitch, for some games, some genres, some indie games, that's fine. They don't have to worry about that. But for a lot of games, that is going to be a major factor in its success. And if the kinds of games that Twitch streamers will stream can now start affecting the kind of games that get made as a
mm-hmm,
result,
mm-hmm,
or it could affect the features that go into those games, because like you said, if they incentivize streamers to stream the game because there's a financial benefit there, or just a huge audience interest, like it becomes this cycle that, again, we're not saying like it's inherently a bad thing that streamers make money streaming, a popular game, or that a game gets popular because streamers like it. But there's a lot of complicated things going on in that relationship that we're not necessarily thinking about when we just go on Twitch and see like, oh, there's a bunch of people playing Fortnite right now. But
yep
like there's a lot going on behind the scenes there, and the way we then use that as a metric for success. Like, oh, Apex Legends had 80,000 viewers a few weeks ago, but now it only has 20,000 viewers. Is that game dying? Maybe it's not dying. Maybe it's actually doing fine, but that is kind of this like self-perpetuating
mm-hmm.
discussion where we use that as the metric and then see fewer people watching it and then assume it's dying, and therefore that kind of spreads as the common wisdom, and then fewer people watch it because they're like, oh, that game's going to be dead. Like, it's a weird cycle.
Mm-hmm. Self-perpetuating. And I wonder, I don't know, we're sort of in like we just saw these games sort of blow up and we're experiencing that the burnout among creators, developers, and content creators. Um, Now, I feel like we're at the tip of the iceberg in that regard. So I'm really wondering, like, is there going to be a bottom that falls out and these games just sort of like go away, or is there going to be a response from these big studios or across the board to invest in projects like a Sekiro, like make a publishing deal, Activision making a publishing deal with From Software to put out something that isn't ever going to be a Fortnite, but will make them money because it's a smart targeted niche pocket game that is just good, and doesn't need years of investment, but has great
Yeah.
return.
And that stuff's like it's never gonna die completely,
No,
right? We're
no,
not like single player games are doomed
no, no.
unless they have 1 year content plans. But I think it is gonna keep moving in this direction more and more unless there is a backlash, unless there's a change in the way games are made, or unless there's a changing of tastes or a new monetization style that comes
Hmm.
out, or games just charging more upfront. Like something will inevitably change in the next few years, but right now we're moving to this very interesting point where like every game wants you to play it for 6 months, and then the games that don't want you to play them for 6 months necessarily get sort of judged by that standard. Like we had
Hmm.
an indie developer who retweeted our story yesterday and then talked about how like yeah, this is true for some indie games too. People will look at it and on Steam and they'll go like, why did you only release like one patch fixing the bugs? Like don't you want to improve your game and like keep adding stuff to it? And it's like, well, I mean, maybe not. Maybe that's the maybe that's the game. Maybe I put it out and like Into the Breach was really fucking good, and maybe we don't need to add new mechs to it every
Yeah.
6 weeks, or
Yeah.
whatever. Like I did um a check of the Steam top 100 games yesterday, like the current player count games, and of those 100, only 6 of them came out this year.
Hot damn.
And that was just like a
Holy
moment
shit.
in time yesterday. Of course that changes every single
Yeah.
day, right? But like that was pretty telling to me that very very few of those games that stay on that list were made this year. Like most of them are games that have stuck around for a long time and either had many updates or are just the kind of game that can just really stick. Like Dark Souls 3 is on there right now
Yeah.
probably because it was on sale in the Golden Week sale, and that's not a game as a service, but it's a good game that people play a lot. But a lot of these games are games that have gotten updates just every few months for the last few years, and that's how they stick around.
Strange times. Strange times. It's gonna be interesting to see how the Epic Store does or doesn't amplify the same issue, because there are creator codes for individual. I think for every game you can buy. I think you can now do that on the Epic Store too.
Mm.
So Epic is really into uh, this cycle we've talked about, and I just wonder, what they're gonna do with it. A lot,
Guess we're gonna find out.
a lot of mysteries, a lot of unknowns yet to resolve. But will be fascinating one way or the other. I just hope it comes out on the side of better labor practices for our developers and less exploitative games across the board. But, we are getting close to running out of time, so let's sprint through some questions if we can.
Yeah.
Boop. Let me switch the thingy there. Right on. So tag PC Gamer in Twitch chat if you have a question for us. We have a couple from our PC Gamer Club Discord already queued up. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go to club.pcgamer.com to find out more. Get on that club Discord and harass me directly. A couple follow-ups for the related to the subject we just talked about. From Nick Manley, we have: what are the ways the PCG show hosts think the brutal crunch of live service games could be dealt with? I don't know. Just don't do it. Just don't treat your employees like expendable resources. I know it's not that simple when investors are involved, but
Yeah.
maybe it is.
Dismantle capitalism.
Dismantle capitalism. Start the revolution. I don't know. Do you guys have any hot ideas?
I mean, one of the counter arguments to unionization is always like unions can't solve everything. They're not a silver bullet, and then I feel like you won't know if it can solve this until you try.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm pretty in favor of a union movement being a thing that empowers developers to demand either better compensation or better more rigid hours, less crunch required. And I'm sure it won't work perfectly for everybody, but it's probably the best option people on the, kind of down in the trenches have to wrest some power away from their bosses. So I hope that becomes a realistic thing in the next 5 years.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah, it doesn't. Something doesn't need to be the perfect solution to help. And just because something isn't a perfect solution doesn't mean you shouldn't still try.
You
Because
should
if
do
you're going to
nothing.
wait for the perfect solution, you're never going to get anything changed. So,
Right on. Uh, the next question from Dead Island Man is pretty similar, so I'm just gonna acknowledge you. Thanks for the question. Um, Down to the remainers. What if I was Nick asks? So it's a long one here, but stick with me. I love sticking bad guys to walls. I'm with you. Whether it's in Fear, Dead Space, or Warframe, it's one of my favorite weird little mechanics in shooter games. This is why I was so bummed to see one of my favorite mechanics nearly disappear from its sequel in Vermintide 2. The original had any bow or crossbow type ranged weapon able to stick a rat to any surface as long as the arrow was the killing blow, but the sequel just about entirely removed that mechanic. It's something small and probably super taxing on performance, so I'm sure they did it for a reason, but it still bummed me out. Uh, is there a mechanic or small oddity that will immediately make a game more interesting for you? And for me, like sort of tailing right off that, like I think a good, uh, like, is it giblet or giblet? Giblet system in any game will make the shooting just 100% more satisfying. I think in Left 4 Dead 2, I think is when they really got the gore system right in that game, and you just have these hordes of zombies coming after you, and you'd be spraying with like an SMG into the crowd, and some would just lose their arm or leg but keep coming towards you, and you see like body parts everywhere. In the early days of, not the early days, but a couple years ago, it looked really cool with the Havoc physics system, and you just get these big, massive piles. Especially, I think, when you had a pipe bomb in Left 4 Dead, and it would just suck all the zombies into one location, and then just send off this amazing spray of blood particles and limbs, and they wouldn't
That
stick
was
around forever.
real
But
satisfying. Yeah.
that I think made, besides the great level design and all that shit, that really like that that made the fantasy for me of being in a zombie apocalypse sort of real. Anything for you guys like come to mind?
One that I guess I can't say I am great at noticing in the moment when I'm playing games, but that I really
Mm-hmm.
appreciate in like GIFs or slow-mo videos or whatever people do is super accurate hitboxes. When
Mm,
you see like when someone does a slow-mo of their character like ducking, and I'm thinking like there's some like Dark Souls clips I've seen. And I don't know if Dark Souls has great hitboxes for enemies and everything, but I've seen videos of like a person ducking by using a taunt move and having like a boss's sword just
yes.
scoop over their head and miss them by just a centimeter, and that is such a just a cool
Yeah.
thing to
You,
witness,
you
like
see
that
that in Fortnite all the
granularity.
time with every new dance they release or emote. You'll see someone dodge a otherwise deadly sniper shot. But what about you, Chris? Anything come to mind? Special mechanics?
well, since we've been talking about Sea of Thieves, I
Mm.
would say I enjoy that you can hand things to people. Like in a lot of games, when you want to share something for your inventory, it's like, oh, drop it on the ground or put it in, a barrel or something. Here, you anything in your inventory, like food or whatever, a cannonball, a fish, you can not only hold something in your hand, but you can hold it out to someone and they can take it from your hand. And even just things like, if you're holding a treasure map in front of your face, you can turn it around and hold it up to someone else's face, or a book. You can hold your lantern out. You can, I mean, pretty much everything you can either show to someone or actually give to them. And it's just, there's something, I don't know, weirdly enjoyable about like physically handing an object to someone as opposed to dropping it and then them picking it up.
Games so rarely treat objects as items as
Yeah.
physical objects, and it's great when they do.
Yeah. I mean, there are games where you can throw things at people, sure. Um, now thinking of it, it would be cool if you could throw a fish at someone in Sea of Thieves. But I do like that you can, like, we were fishing and I don't know if it was Tyler or Steven, didn't have bait. So I'm like, I have bait, and I held it out in my hand, and they just took it. It's just it's just a fun. It makes you feel, way more interactive than dropping something on the ground and then someone picking it up.
Excellent.
So
These are
fun.
great answers. That's a good question. Thank you. Thanks a bunch.
Very good question.
What If I Was Nick? What If I Was Nick has one more follow up, and we'll answer this and then get going. I have a second question related to cataloging. Since a large portion of your jobs as a PC gamer is to have opinions about games and media, critical opinions, do you catalog or keep track of it? And if so, how? I have kept a journal with thoughts and bullet points on all media I consume, TV, movies, games, books, since 2015. But the app I use, Journey for Android, doesn't do a very good job. Do any of you keep a journal or spreadsheet or list of any kind like this? And if you do, please share any apps or programs that do a good job. I'm not that organized. I have a document where I'll drop. I keep notes on every game I'm playing for work. Sometimes extracurricular notes too. But I do have like a master document of everything that I think is a memorable, worthwhile thing to reflect on at the end of the year. I started doing that in preparation for our game of the year stuff because there's always something I forget to mention, and I'll maybe link to notes or articles or whatever we've written about that. But otherwise, I just have like 80 moleskins that I've written 2 pages in, and like that's about it. You guys have any of you guys organized? Wes, you seem like an organized guy.
I am a terrible note taker in general, and have surely forgotten more of the games I've played this year already than I remember. Yeah, I'm not good at that stuff at all. I recently started a Letterboxd account just for like tracking movies I watch, but I'm too lazy to write reviews of them, so I kind of like the data, like I like tracking the like, oh, I watched this movie on this date, just for the kind of nebulous idea that like 20 years from now I'm going to be interested in the fact that like I watched The Evil Dead 2 on some random weekend in 2016. I probably won't actually care, but I like to imagine that I will. So I've been like tracking the movies I watched, but at the bare minimum of data, no thoughts, no opinions put down.
Chris, tell me you take notes in a organized manner.
I do take a lot of notes on games, and usually in their own separate Google Docs sheet, which I then do not title, so I just have dozens, if not hundreds, of untitled documents in my Google Drive folder. It's awful. It's like the worst. I mean, it's just the worst. It's the worst practice ever. I think it's a great idea, honestly, to keep a journal of stuff you watch, especially if you can search it, because so many times I find myself like watching something and being like, did I see this? Did I not see this?
Yeah.
Or like I started reading a book recently, like, wait a minute, I read this like 8 years ago. What am I doing? It's with all the different books and movies and games we consume, it's really hard. It's really easy to forget about them sometimes entirely until you're looking at them again. So I think it's great to have. I think it's a great idea to have a record. Also, it's like people want recommendations. It's great to be like, oh, here's like 10 things I watched this year that I really liked.
Definitely. So, what if I was Nick?
Hold on, I want to give Chris a hot tip, Google Docs hot tip. If you write whatever make your first line.
I know it'll automatically.
All you gotta do is click up in the title.
Yeah, I don't ever get that far. I don't title them. I just start writing about whatever. I never
just gotta get those notes down.
Good God. So, what if I was Nick? You basically just give us advice, please. We need it.
Yeah, let us know.
Let us know.
Let me see a sample, because I would really like to do that myself.
Yeah, it's time for spring cleaning, and that applies to our digital spaces, I think, nowadays too. So, thanks for the reminder. But that's gonna do it. We're a little over time. What is this show called? Yeah, thanks for joining us on the PC Gamer Show. You can catch the show every week at 1 p.m. Pacific time at twitch.tv/PCGamer, or you can catch us after the fact at youtube.com/PCGamer or PCGamer.com/tag/podcast, where you can find our entire archive of shows. You can find our RSS feed, links to Spotify, Anchor.fm, Google Play, and everywhere else you can find us online. Yeah, that's going to do it. Thanks for going over time with me, you two. Apologies, but it's the price. It's the price we pay to have good talks online about video games. What's our tagline? Oh yeah.
No idea.
We'll see you next week. Don't forget to game on. That's it. Fucking A. I'll get it someday. All right.
I'll make a note. I'll make a note in my
Yeah.
doc.
Yeah. I lost that G-Doc. Take care, everyone. See ya.
Bye.